Hi there, this is James Tripp, this is Hypnosis Without Trance. This video is called The 3 Primary Dynamics of Personal Influence. Now before I move on with this video, I'd like to point out that it is a direct follow-up to the previous video I put on the blog called The Loops That Run Your Life. So if you haven't watched that video yet, pause this now, follow the link below and go watch that video first. And if you have watched that video, which I'm going to assume you have if you are continuing to watch now, if you have watched that video, you'll remember that in that video we were discussing the idea that as human beings we co-create our reality. We are shaping our reality moment by moment, shaping our experience moment by moment with our cognitive faculties and by applying all sorts of filters. And you'll also remember that how we shape our experience, how we create our experience, how we organize our reality hugely influences our primary experience in life, and it influences what we get out of life. Okay, so the idea I was introducing there was when you understand how you are organizing your reality, when you know yourself on this level and you develop the skill to influence that, it's a phenomenally and profoundly empowering thing. And it is one of the 3 primary dynamics of personal influence. It is the first of the 3 primary dynamics of personal influence, and it is self-to-self influence. So we've talked about that self-to-self influence in the loops that run your life. I want to introduce 2 more dynamics of personal influence, because in that video, in the loops that run your life, I said, you know, what that was about leading a more enriched life, a more empowered life, and having the ability to shape your destiny. And I said, you know, and I was curious to know if people were interested in covering that kind of material. And the response clearly from the comments section that people are. So this is an extension. The other 2 dynamics of personal influence, other than self-to-self influence, are self-to-other influence. That is how you influence the world around you, and other-to-self influence. That is how the world around you influences you. So looking at the 3 dynamics of personal influence, we've got self-to-self, self-to-other, and other-to-self. Now the thing I want to make clear here is all of these things are interrelated. When we're breaking these down and looking at them separately, it's because it's useful to do so. But when you understand the 3 dynamics, the 3 primary dynamics, you can start to look at how they all fit together and how they all affect each other, and to become a real master of influence, if you like. Now when I say a master of influence, I'm not talking about some kind of power craze, I can control everything kind of thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about simply being empowered to direct your life in the directions that you want it to go. Being able to understand motivations, being able to influence things in ways that are totally congruent with your values, totally congruent with what you would like to have happen, and totally congruent with the good of the system as a whole. Okay, so this is not some kind of power craze thing. This is just about being a more effective human being. And to be the most effective human being that you can be, that is somebody who can influence their lives and the lives of others to be as fulfilling as they can possibly be. To do that, really, what lies at the base of that is an understanding of the dynamics of personal influence. So these are the 3 dynamics. Let me just say something very quickly about how these 3 dynamics influence each other and what they are, because we've talked about self-to-self influence in the loops that run your life. Self-to-other influence. Okay, now this is an obvious thing in many ways, and if you think about it, if we couldn't do this, if we weren't naturally good at doing this on some level, we wouldn't be here. Because when you're a baby, when you're first born, you don't have the ability to do much for yourself. So you need people to do it for you. And you need to be able to influence those people. And babies have very simple but very profound and very powerful tools for influencing people around them, for recruiting them to their purpose, so as they get fed and they get changed and they get kept warm and they get looked after. Now, so we're very naturally very good influencers at influencing other people. But as we grow up and as we partake in society more and the complexity of society, the ways that we have available to influence others become more diverse, but also more subtle. We don't get to just cry and get what we want anymore. although some people still try and do that as adults. But there are negative consequences. So self to other influence as a skill set is about understanding how to artfully influence the world around you. And there are many elements to doing this. There's understanding non-verbal communication. There's understanding concepts such as framing, manipulating the kind of semantic environment that people operate in. There's the use of kind of language patterns, embedding ideas, all sorts of things. It's basically what I suppose you could call conversational hypnosis. The use of language and communication to direct attention and seed ideas in other people so as you can influence the way they're running their loops, their everyday moment by moment loops. So that's self to other. Now if you think about it, if you're organising your reality or you're co-creating your reality, and it's all going on in here, your output systems influence the people around you and their hypnotic loops are influenced by it. So that's self to other. What you're doing inside of your head, whether or not you're doing anything strategically in your communication, will influence other people. And it works the other way around. Other people influence you. They influence you all the time. In fact, what's true of us as human beings is much of the time we think we're thinking our own thoughts. We think the ideas that we're operating from are our ideas, but mostly they're not. They've come to us. They've come in through our channels somehow. They came from out there in the world and they came into us. And the people around us influence us all the time. Now this is no bad thing. It's important that we're influenced by the people around us because that's what learning is about. If there's no influence from the world around you, there is no learning. But it's also important to be aware, because not all learning is good learning. We can learn what some people call limiting beliefs, limiting patterns. We can learn things that disempower us. We can take them on board. We can integrate them into our own loops without even realizing it. In a way, we are being hypnotized by other people. But it's important to understand the dynamic, because when you understand the dynamic, you can start to manage the dynamic. You can manage the influences upon you. And when you can manage the influences upon you, you can become more empowered in yourself, because you start to learn ways of being in the world. You start to pick up orientations that are extremely useful. And in a way, this is the basis of what's often called modelling in NLP. We pick people who are good models for things, people we know we can learn from, and we effectively open up our channels so as we can be influenced in useful ways by them. And modelling isn't something that was created or invented by NLPers necessarily. It's the natural way we all learn as human beings. So we have these three elements. We have self to self influence, self to other, and other to self. And you could think about it like this. If you think about each human being as a self-organizing system, a self-organizing perceptual system, a self-organizing information system, and each human being's going around continually running these hypnotic loops. There's Bob over here running a hypnotic loop, and Mary over here running a hypnotic loop, and Joanna over there running a hypnotic loop, and everyone's running these hypnotic loops. And all the time these hypnotic loops are influencing each other. They're all subtly influencing each other. And they're all part of a larger system of influence. And this is the thing about the dynamics of personal influence. When you understand the larger system as well as your own personal system, what's going on, all the different parts within yourself and how they influence each other, when you can start to see the whole thing and map it out as a system, this is where the real magic starts to happen. This is where you become really deeply empowered to be what I call an adept. Now, I got this idea because I used to be very much influenced by Taoism, and I guess I still am in many ways. But that was the kind of first big influence on me. And in the Taoist literature, there's often references to Taoist adepts. And if you take this outside of Taoism, you can look back across history, about all of history, and there are people over time who gained insight into the reality of life, of human life, of social life, of how the interplay of different elements works, and gained abilities and understandings on how to influence that in useful and productive ways. So there have been throughout history adepts. There are more and more emerging in this day and age. More and more people are becoming aware of the dynamics of the systems of life and around them, of how they work, and getting smarter and smarter about how to influence that. And those who do, well, unsurprisingly, they get more of the stuff they want out of life and less of the stuff they don't. And those who don't often end up trapped in painful realities that they feel they have no ability to influence. If you're watching this, I would like for you to become a person who is adept at understanding the dynamics of influence, an adept influencer, a profound influencer. That's what I would like for you, because I know that when you do that, you will have a phenomenally enriched life. And I know that when you do that and you have those understandings, you will be empowered to enrich the lives of others as well. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. You know, I think this is a personal belief of mine, but I think if everybody became empowered to enrich their own lives optimally and enrich the lives of others, how could that not be a good thing? You know, how could that not be almost a globally transforming thing? I'm going to be running a webinar, a teleseminar, whatever you want to call it. There will be a webcast next Wednesday, on Wednesday the 1st of August. It will be at 7 p.m. International time, which is 8 p.m. local time. It's going to be called it is called the Dynamics of Personal Influence. I'm going to be going a lot deeper into this material, exploring some of the possibilities within it. And it's a free webinar, so please join me on that. And if you check out the information below, what you have is the opportunity to ask questions ahead of time. You can ask about those 3 primary dynamics, or you can ask about anything else you want to know about personal influence and becoming more influential as a human being. And I'll answer some of those questions. But essentially I'm going to be going into greater detail about the dynamics of personal influence, sharing some principles. I'm going to aim to bring the teleseminar in around about an hour and a quarter. So obviously I'm limited as to what I can go into, but I want to get as much rich learning in for you as possible in that time, if this is something you're interested in learning more about, and if an adept personal influencer is something that you would like to become. Okay, that's enough said. I will see you next Wednesday. It's the 1st of August. It's 7 p.m. International time, 8 p.m. UK local time. Ask questions below, and in the meantime, take care of yourselves.